Good morning students, hope you all are fine. I hope you have watched the first video of your MSC lesson number 1, Gandhiji, a light forever. Now students, in the first video we had seen that Gandhiji lived a life full of simplicity and a life full of truth. For him, truth was God and God was truth. Then we saw the different condolence messages which different people, great personalities had sent on his death. The condolence messages sent by great personalities on his death, in which we saw two examples. First one was about Louis Fisher, what he had written in his book. Second one about Pearl S. Buck, what she wrote in her book. And then the condolence message of Pope Pius XII and the Dalai Lama of Tibet. These were the condolence messages given by them. So, different topics we saw in that part or in that period. Now we will come to the second part of this chapter, that is on page number 2 of your textbook. We had concluded the previous video in the following manner, that Louis Fisher also writes in his book about two different incidents from abroad, that is, incidents about children. We already saw that people all over the world, both great and small, great personalities as well as common people, the greatest problem or the greatest tragedy was with Indians. Why? Because they lost a great soul when Gandhiji died. When he was assassinated, they lost a great soul. That we saw in the previous video. But even small innocent children, they lost a great fatherly figure. So we see in Louis Fisher's book two examples of children from abroad. The first example on page number 2, the first 3 lines, you can do it in this way. A California girl of 13 writes this letter. I was really terribly sad to hear about Gandhi's death. I never knew I was so interested in him, but I found myself quite unhappy about the great man's death. So now students, what can we say here? A Californian girl, that is a girl from California, about 13 years of age. Age 13 years, approximate age about 13 years means, and she heard about Gandhi's death. At the most, she was actually not so interested in Gandhiji when he was alive. But after hearing the news of his death, she was terribly shaken. Why is it so? Because she came to know that he is a great soul after hearing the news of his death. Now, she can't see him alive anymore. So she was terribly shaken. So she found herself very unhappy about this great man's death. She could not bear that loss. This is the first example which we see about a child, an innocent child from abroad. This is not an Indian incident, this is an incident from abroad. This is from California. The next incident we will be seeing about a girl from New York. So moving to the second incident in Louis Fisher's book about the innocent child is about a girl from New York. Was written by students in the second paragraph, that is the fourth line on page number 2. In New York, a 12-year-old girl had gone to the kitchen for breakfast. The radio was on and it announced the news of the shooting of Gandhi. There in the kitchen, the girl, the maid and the gardener held a prayer meeting and prayed and wept. What's written by students? A girl from New York. She's a 12-year-old girl. A 12-year-old girl, and what is written over there? That after the death of Gandhiji, after he was assassinated, the news was spread all over the world by radio. In those days we had very limited sources of communication. Means of communication were very less. So radio was a major or the best source. So this news was announced to the whole world by our Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru. So when he announced the news on radio, this shocking news was heard by people all over the world. So when this girl was in the kitchen, she heard this news being announced on the radio. She could not bear it. There in the kitchen itself, what happened? She, along with her maid, that is the girl whom we are talking about, the girl, along with her maid and her gardener, all the three of them, what they did? They knelt down in the kitchen itself and prayed and wept. That is, they could not bear this sad news that Gandhiji had died. So they began to weep there and then in the kitchen itself. So with these two incidents, we can come to know that even small innocent children could not bear the loss of Gandhiji in their lives. Such a great soul was Gandhiji. Thus, for millions of people all over the world, Gandhiji's death was a personal loss. So now, as you already saw students, for India, this was a very great loss. The death of Gandhiji was nothing less than a great calamity. Or you can say that the death of Gandhiji was nothing less than a disaster for Indians. Why? Because they lost such a great soul. We called him Mahatma and formerly we called him Bapu. They lost the father of the nation. That is, the people of India could not bear this great loss. And when this message was sent through radio by Jawaharlal Nehru, he also sent this message in a very emotional way. His voice choked up. Why? Because he could not bear the loss, he could not announce it properly. And with such grief in his heart, what did he announce, these students? The paragraph written there in quotes on page number 2 in quotations. What is written there? The light has gone out, I said, and yet I was wrong. For the light that shone in the country was no ordinary light. The light that has illuminated this country for these many years will illumine this country for many more years. And 1,000 years later, that light will be seen in this country. And the world will see it and will give solace to innumerable hearts. For that light represented the living truth and the eternal man was reminding us of the right path, drawing us from error, taking this ancient country to freedom. So students, what does this message mean? This paragraph which we read right now in quotations, what is the meaning of that? The light has gone. Students, here, the light. This is the heading of the chapter. I hope you are very clear with that. You are aware of that? Light, which stands for Gandhiji himself. The light has gone out of our life. That is, our country has lost its light. That is, Gandhiji has been removed from our sight. Then what is the meaning there? If light is removed, students, what happens? There is darkness everywhere. So for India, now the era will be of darkness. Why? Because light has departed. So darkness will be everywhere, and we are not very clear. That is, in those days, in that time when Gandhiji was assassinated, we were not very clear how to live a life in further days. That is, we had no guide. We had no guiding light to lead us to the right path. And Nehru did not know how to tell it to the nation, how to convey this message to the nation. Then he said that our honored leader, who is our honored leader? Our honored leader is Bapu himself, or Gandhiji himself. Our honored leader Bapu has left us, and he is the father of the nation. He is no more. And perhaps I am wrong to say that. I stand here for Jawaharlal Nehru. He is announcing this on radio. What he said? That I am wrong to say that he has departed from us. For us, he has not departed anywhere. His departure is only bodily. Okay? He has only departed bodily from us. Physically, he has departed from us. But his values remain in our country till eternity. And we will not run to him for any advice now, for any comfort. We will not run to him because he is not there in our midst. But we will have all his values imbibed in our lives. We will have all his values imbibed in our lives. We will live according to his values. Okay. So, what is the meaning over here? That for many more years, we will have nobody to give us solace, for us to give us comfort. But his values will remain with us. And it is difficult to soften the blow. Very difficult to soften the blow. What is the blow? Blow means the death of Gandhiji. It is very difficult to bear this loss. We cannot soften this topic here. We have to bear it anyhow. But this man was an eternal man. Nobody can comfort us in this time of grief. But this person, that is the father of the nation, Gandhiji, the light of the world, he is drawing us into the right path, taking this ancient country to freedom. That is the main point here is his values lead us into the right path. That is the values of Gandhiji. This is the main point. The advice of Gandhiji remains in our hearts till eternity, forever. So, this was the radio message given by Nehru about the death of Gandhiji, about the assassination of Gandhiji to the whole world. Now students, on page number 2, see the third last paragraph in your textbook. This is another incident. Right now we saw the radio message of Jawaharlal Nehru to the nation and to the world. Now we'll see another example here about the condolence message after the death of Gandhiji. How is it? This goes in this way. Gandhiji's life was a lesson for everyone. That is, how he lived was a lesson to be learned by everyone in this world. Why? Because what he preached, he did in his life. He practiced what he preached. But his death was an inspiration for all. How can you say that, students? Because even after his death, people were being inspired by him still. Till the present age, we are being inspired by the values of Gandhiji. That is, it will go on to be an inspiration till eternity, forever. So that is why it said over here, life of Gandhiji was a lesson and his death was an inspiration for all. All over the world, everyone was inspired by his life which he led in this world. And Rabindranath Tagore wrote in his book 10 years before the death of Gandhiji. He wrote a sentence. You can see it in the last paragraph of page number 2. See, students, read what is written over there. Perhaps he will not succeed. Perhaps he will fail as Buddha failed and as Christ failed to wean men from their iniquities. But he will always be remembered as one who made his life a lesson for all ages to come. What do you mean by this quotation, students? It means always what is written in the quotes are taken from different books of different authors, as we saw in the previous video and in this video also. So this is also from the book of Rabindranath Tagore. 10 years before Gandhi's death, he had written this. What is written? Perhaps, that is, it's not necessarily always, it might be, perhaps, he will not succeed. Who? Gandhiji. And what's written over here? 2 more examples I will give there. Gandhiji along with Buddha, that is Lord Buddha, and Christ. Christ means Lord Jesus Christ. 3 people are compared over here. All the 3, they worked for the betterment of humanity, as you already know that. But both of them failed to wean out humanity. See, so it's the word here in the textbook, wean. Wean out human beings from their iniquities. What do you mean by that? That is to take out people from their sins, from their wrongdoings. Remove the people from their sins. That was done by Buddha and Christ both. But Gandhiji was also following their path. He was also in the way of taking out the wrongdoings from the people. Sins means wrongdoings from people. Perhaps he would also fail like both of them failed. But it is not like that he will not be remembered. We still remember Buddha, we still remember Christ in the same way. He will always, that is, he means it stands for Gandhiji, will always be remembered as one. Will be remembered as one who made his life as a lesson for all ages to come. Here, what do you mean by students? All ages, not age, which we speak about 3 years of age, not like that, 5 years of age, not in this category. All ages means forever, that is eternity. His values will be remembered by everybody for eternity, forever. So, the lines of Tagore, these 3 lines written in quotes mean that just as Christ and Buddha failed to wean out people, take out people from their sins, little bit it was successful but not in a great manner. The same way, Gandhiji could not also succeed, perhaps. But people will remember him forever as a lesson. So now students, then what's written over there? It's written that as they are all children of that great father, that is Father of the nation, Gandhiji, and a great leader, and we are citizens of this country. Which country? India. We are children of that great father, and we are also citizens of this country. Okay? Which is our country? India. So it's our responsibility to follow those values, to learn that lesson which Gandhiji has taught us. Even after his death, it should be an inspiration for all of us. All his actions of truth should be imbibed in our life so that it will liberate our country. Now students, liberate means it stands for freedom. Liberation means freedom. Okay. Now we have received freedom, achieved independence in 1947. But freedom from all evils, from all social evils of society. We have to leave all those evils. Only then our country will be totally liberated and totally free. So we have to stand for those values because it still needs freedom. India still needs liberation from all the wrong things, from evils which are prevalent in the society. Students, we come to the ending of this chapter. There is a quote written there on page number 3. by Jean-Paul Sartre. What is the quote there, students? Read it. The tyrant dies and his rule ends. The martyr dies and his rule begins. What do you mean by that, students? Here the word tyrant. Tyrant, who is a tyrant? A cruel person. Tyrant means a person is very cruel. Okay. So a cruel person dies and nobody remembers him. Why? His rule ends there, then and there itself. Nobody wants to remember him at all. But a martyr dies. Here martyr is Gandhiji, one who gives his life for the country is known as a martyr. But when a martyr dies, what happens? People remember that person. In this case, who is the martyr? Gandhiji. And his rule begins. Okay. When a martyr dies, his rule begins. But when a tyrant or cruel person dies, his rule ends there. Why? Because here people don't want to remember the tyrant. People only want to remember the martyr. So, we have to follow the values which Gandhiji has taught us in our lives. So, students, we come to the ending of this chapter. I hope you are clear with this chapter. It talks about Gandhiji, a light forever, an eternal light for Indians as well as all over the country, the people all over the world. People were very happy with the values which he taught, and his life was a lesson, but his death was an inspiration. So, we should also try to embed those values in our lives. Students, go through this lesson, read it, page number 1, 2 and 3, and try to read the chapter clearly so that you will be more clear with the